Like I set it up, I set an event up so that it was
Oh.
timed, but I don't want it to go live like on a different stream.
Watch live. Yeah, it just says it's live now.
Okay, good.
Is it preview disabled when you stream?
I just disable it to, here we go.
Oh. Why is there sound coming off of this? So it's streaming.
All right, yeah, we're on.
Cool. All right.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Jason.
How's it going?
Okay.
Hey, everybody. We are here live on the internets, on the YouTubes with Laura. Why don't you tell everybody what you do if they don't know?
So I'm a CEO and co-founder of Infinite Flight. I work on flight physics, multiplayer code, some UI, some navigation stuff, and I live in New York.
Cool. We are solo here, but I'll start by saying that my name's Jason, and I do a lot of digital marketing stuff for Infinite Flight, and I have joined Laura in New York so that we can have a little time together to do some video stuff and hang out, have a little FaceTime. We work from literally how many countries? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Total?
5? Oh no,
More.
5,
Probably
6.
Like 7, 8 countries?
Lots of countries. So we're spread out all over the place. We don't get to see each other very often other than online. So I don't see anybody complaining about, we're just going to look down here once in a while at the comments. I don't see anyone complaining about any lack of audio. So I think we're okay. I'm just going to check.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay.
Sounds working.
Cool. We're by ourselves. We don't have anybody helping us, so we're just going to roll with this. We'll do our best, and we're going to keep it casual and answer some of your questions, hopefully. So first of all, we want to keep you guys informed, and part of my job is to make sure that our developers and our artists are giving info to you, the user, and Misha and I have been on social media lots in addition to Tyler, who helps out when he can, and we're just trying to open the lines of communication so that you know what's going on to the extent that we can. So that's one of the goals for today. We also want to provide you a few resources to find more information if you're looking for it, and maybe hopefully give some sneak peeks. We don't have anything hooked up right now where we can show you anything in Infinite Flight, although we will be producing some videos, hopefully that will sort of have that kind of a vibe. So, Laura, what are you working on right now?
Well, we're about to ship 19.1. It's been a long update. There was a lot of debugging because of replay mostly. It's been a feature that I started working on in around May last year, and it's been a challenge. There's a lot of corner cases, a lot of side effects that were to make things work in replay. It broke things in the normal mode.
Can you give us an example?
For example, just by the way we render planes, like right now in the current solo or live mode, you can only be, there's only one plane that you can focus on. It's your airplane, and you cannot focus on anything else. In the replay mode, you're not technically what we call a user aircraft, but you're an aircraft that you can focus on.
Right.
So it impacted cameras and a bunch of other things, right? So that caused us to like kind of rework some of the workings of the cameras. And that also came with an additional issue. For example, like when you show up in the sim and we start replaying, but at the beginning of the replay, you're not, like your plane's not loaded and you're basically in observer mode. But then the airplane shows up, but we have to add the cameras.
Right.
So we had to add a code to dynamically add cameras to the app, So that came with some UI also changes, because up until replay, the camera button, like the options in the cameras were fixed. They were done at low time, and you couldn't modify them.
Right.
So now we have to have a way to modify them and have the buttons reflect those changes. So that's a little details that are not necessarily visible to everyone when you think like at replay, but there's tons of little things that even us, we think like, yeah, it's no big deal. But then when you start implementing it, you get into a crash and you're like, oh, yeah, well, no, it's not that easy to fix. And then it sends you down, a week of reworking things. And sometimes it's like, we call it a can of worms. Like you just open something and it's just like tons of bugs that are coming out, and you have to fix all of those before you can come back to your normal like schedule of making things work. So, yeah.
Yeah, there was I won't say what it was, but there was a cool feature that you almost added in 18.6 that had to do with the wings, which I'm hoping comes back. We won't say what yet. That was the one that Deer Crusher wanted added.
I don't remember.
Well, we won't talk about it. But the point is, there's always these things where you add something and there's this unintended consequence that you didn't even see coming, right?
Yeah.
Is that because of legacy code sometimes?
I can see Philippe shaking his head, but yeah. Oftentimes it's because of legacy code, or just because, for example, in the case of the replay, the initial design of all the cameras, all the aircraft was based on the fact that we only have one aircraft. You can't focus on another one. So there's things that are just tailored or simplified to make one aircraft situation the easiest and the simplest.
Right.
But when you add more aircraft, when you add liveries, when you add a bunch of other features on top of it, you try to kind of patch it, and it becomes like at some point you can't make it work anymore. So it's finding this balance between, should I fix this bug and try to hack it one more time, or should I just like step back and actually implement this properly with the knowledge of all these use cases that we have now?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just, you're almost done with the feature, you're like, one more hack, and it comes and bites you later.
And then it's my job to try and explain
Yeah.
why we've done something without getting into too many technical details. Oh yeah, we're just kind of taking a look at the stream, you guys. This is great. Thank you for all the questions. We've got our live chat in slow mode just to prevent some getting. It makes it easier for us to read. Let's see if we can take one question here. Oh, okay. So I'm seeing several comments about no HD scenery in South America. So for anyone who's missed our multiple answers on social media, which we try to answer these questions every once in a while, although we can't do all of them because it would just be repetitive. So for people who have missed those, we've commented lots on our forum. By the way, you can go to community.infinite- I'm so used to saying that. community.infiniteflight.com and just do a search for HD scenery or South America, and you'll see lots of info and our staff answers from that. However, there will be a blog post coming at some point that addresses this a little bit more. It's it's really Philippe's thing, but the one of the issues is that we have the data set, so we have it in our possession. This data set came with a lot more data than we previously had. So for all of the rest of the data that we have already in the sim for the rest of the world, this data set for South America and for I think the poles, a little bit more info on the poles.
There's some of the poles, and they've reworked some of the already existing regions.
Right, and this data set is way bigger in terms of file size and amount of data, and we can't use it that way. We need to scale it down. This is the non-technical version.
Right.
We have to scale it down and compress it and extrapolate what we need from it, and it's just a time-consuming process, and it's taking longer than what we initially thought.
And there's also a bunch of like other technical issues that Philippe is trying to work with for future generations of the system. So we could either goes along with what I was just talking about, whether we should just make that work now or try to make sure that then we can tweak a little of the system before it ships so we can have higher resolution or other things that come into the same data sets. So it's all a balance, but as Infinite Flight, we're also avid players, and anything that you feel like is missing, we also feel your pain because we're also players. Like yesterday, there were flights from South America, and we were just complaining. It's like, we'd love to have better imagery.
Yeah, Tyler and the ATC crew want to represent you in South America, and the scenery will come.
Yeah.
So that's hopefully answers those questions a little bit. Let's talk about the new release, because we can't talk about the project you're working on right now.
No. Well, no.
No. Laura's working on something very cool, very different from what we have released in the past, and that's all we're going to say. So, 19.1 has a lot of stuff coming out. How did this evolve? Because we have no airplanes coming out in this release, which I realize some people are disappointed and frustrated with because we're a flight sim, but
yeah, so this update, like, we already knew from the get-go that we could not have any planes because we have a team of people working on those planes and they were not going to be ready in time. Yeah. So we had to make a decision to make some kind of a service release, and it was supposed to be just a service release where we fix bugs and look at optimizations and things that people have been complaining about.
Which we've done, right?
Yeah, which we've done. Like we've made, like, one of the things that people were complaining about is the fact that when they got a violation or a ghosting, sometimes they would just come back to their computer, so their laptop, so their iPad, and realize that they were ghosted or they had been disconnected from violations, and they had no idea what happened. So something we worked on in this update was to make sure that those issues, those situations were clear. Mm-hmm. So we have a new system where we show a little banner like in the middle of the page that says you're reaching a violation if you're going to do that. You've been ghosted by this person, and these things are sticky. So, for example, if you're taxiing too fast, as long as you're taxiing too fast, the message will stick, right? So if you want it to stop, you're going to have to brake, so you go below 35. And if you get into a situation where it actually you incur a violation or a ghosting, this message stays on the screen unless you manually dismiss it. Yep. So you will know when something happened, and you have more of a chance to actually see the message, because previously it was just shown as like a little banner on the top, but it was mixed in the ATC messages. So it's not the most user-friendly way of figuring out if something is wrong, especially if you're a new user. So hopefully this will make things a little clearer. At least now, as we've been testing this, it's really clear that something is wrong and you need to correct it. Even if you're not really paying attention, you can see it's in your face. There's a message that says you're too fast, or you're going to get violation if you keep that up. So that's a big change. So that's what's part of the service update. It doesn't really add a lot to advanced users, but it makes the experience a little more a little clearer and cleaner for everybody. And the other things that we've added, there's been, as always, some work on the performance improvements. So we just usually at the end of every release we go through performance session. So we go through put the app into Profiler. Yep. And we look at what's taking time, what could be optimized, if there's any low-hanging fruit. So we've done some of that in this update. And bear in mind that it's not always visible when things have been updated. Right. Because we're getting to a point where everything pretty much takes time, and there's not one thing that stands out. When you go through the normal process of the app
there's
itself.
No spike in.
Right. There's no. Like if it was just like the light rendering that takes a long time, then you can see it, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to focus on light rendering because I know this takes the most time. What we have now it's just a bunch of little things, and especially things that require a lot more engineering to fix, like a lot of data-oriented programming that we need to switch to. So we have a lot of object-oriented things that require a lot of memory shuffling all the time, and it's something that doesn't really show up in profilers, but it's just the overall time that it takes to do things. It shows up in there. So we have to, and this takes time to re-engineer.
Right.
So yeah.
Cool. Okay. So we've got some of that stuff happening, bug fixes, some livery fixes.
Yes.
So
I forgot exactly which one. The list, there's like
it doesn't matter.
like 777, like some 319, 320, something like that.
Yeah. There's various not new liveries, but fixes in terms of what would that be?
Like a call sign or a little
right,
sticker that's
something
missing
was wrong. Yeah.
on,
Okay.
yeah.
So we've got some of those. We have some. Let's talk about the A330.
Yes.
This was not planned.
No, it wasn't planned.
And it really only happened 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right? Where all of a sudden on our forum there was all of a sudden there was a spike in as we got closer to having to release an update. There was a spike in the A330 feature request thread, and it didn't stop. It just kept going and going and going. It's still going a little bit. So Laura said, "You know what? We don't have time for a rework, but let's throw the community a bone here and do some work on it."
Right. So I worked on the physics initially.
And the main problem,
I think the thing that triggered me to work on this was the video that I forgot who posted it, but there's a video that showed a switch from flap 3 to 4.
Yeah.
That was causing instead of causing the normal kind of like bubbling up, was causing the path vector to just dip to the ground.
Yeah.
And it hurt my ego. So it's like, this can't stay like this, and especially if it's one of the top requested planes. At least I can just work on that a little bit, and then I kind of fixed the physics, and then pushed an update to the beta team, and they were all basically saying like, this is a brand new plane.
Yep.
Like, we forgot about that plane. It's amazing. It looks nice. So we decided to work a little more on it, and add a few things to it. So
let me put a disclaimer in here. We have often been our community sometimes expresses a frustration in the fact that we have a feature request category, but we don't read it. We certainly do read it, but if you didn't join us at the start of the stream, Laura was talking about some of the challenges that come with actually fixing things and adding things and the time it takes. This is one of the reasons we want to know what the community wants, and there's a clear for our existing audience for Infinite Flight. There's a clear heavies is by far the most requested thing, in addition to clouds and buildings and things like that, which we'll talk about. But we have to take the feature request category and combine it with what we can do in terms of device requirements, supporting older devices, what we have now. Like other sims even on mobile have things like buildings and clouds, but they don't have global flight. They don't have multiplayer. And these are the things that take up valuable system resources. So we have to try and strike a balance. When it comes to the feature request category like the A330, it's not necessarily the squeaky wheel. It does help that we have a thriving category for the A330, and we know we want the A350. But I think just to clarify, what am I trying to say? I'll just be blunt. It's not necessarily the public outcry that gets the new things. It's the a combination of all of those things. And in this case, Laura said, "That's not good enough. I'm going to fix it."
Yeah, and we had some time. So so we worked on the replay, and there was we can talk about the replay a little bit because it kind of links into it. So the initial thing for the replay, we're not sure we're going to have the replay for that update. This was back in December when we're kind of, every time after we ship an update, we have a few weeks of kind of wandering around, figuring out what's ready, what's not ready, what could be done in a month or 2 or 3 months, and then sending the team onto their respective tasks and trying to see if at the end of a cycle we can ship what they've done or not. And replay, I wasn't really confident that we could have replay for that update. I was
Right, because we were said maybe just for IFATC
right.
first,
So
right?
this could have been like this almost has been an update just for IFATC, the replay, because we're not really sure we could support having everyone share replays and work on that from the beginning.
Mhm.
So we figured like let's have it just for IFATC as a way to have them review ghosting complaints and kind of stress test the system.
Yep.
But as we went on, I kind of gained more confidence because I was the only person testing it really when the decision was made. And when we started shipping betas with it, I realized that it was actually more stable than I thought. And we figured like let's actually ship it to everyone.
Mhm.
So that's why now it's shipping to everyone because it's to a level that we feel confident we can ship it. About the 330, how it gets into the mix is that at the very end of it, it seemed stable enough, and we were not like I wanted to have a little more time to test it, but we had some time to do very soft rework on the 330. I figured that we had time, so that's why it got mixed into that update. But it's not like we shouldn't make that a normal
Right.
recurring thing because it's just for this one we had time and the model was not too far behind. Like it would be more difficult for the 757 or the 767 because the models are way older.
Okay.
330 is like at some kind of junction between the latest ones and the older ones. It's like right at the sweet spot where it still looks nice, but it still needs work. But it's okay to just have a little boost to it.
I have to say, I'm personally not a fan of. I like airliners. I think they're beautiful, and we're all av geeks here. The A330 is not one of my favorites. To me, the belly looks funny, and it's just not one of my favorites. But flying it now on this new update is a joy. Like it,
Yeah,
you did an
it's-
awesome
it's
job.
like a new airplane.
It
now.
is, yeah. Ground effect, better crosswind handling. The flaps work properly, right?
Well, and what we talked about today.
Yes, we have a new post on our social media account that Misha posted this morning, which you will notice something exciting, which is a big deal because in the past adding something like WingFlex would be a process, right? And
Right.
now it was like,
Now it's
hey,
more
hey
streamlined,
guys,
yeah.
we're adding some stuff. Let's see if we can sneak
Yeah.
this in, right?
Yeah, and it was just a matter of asking Jarno,
Yeah.
can you split the wing into sections so we can have that? And the WingFlex code on my end is pretty easy. I just have to set up, like it works based on the total weight. It's a ratio between total weight and how much the wings are supporting.
Okay.
So that's how it's not faked unless it's multiplayer in live. When it's for other planes, it's faked. Because I don't send the flex over the network. But if you're in solo, it actually is based on the actual weight. That's why when you have turbulence, it's actually because the force on that wing, if one wing is higher, is because the force on that wing is higher than the other one. So it's
Okay.
based on actual physics.
Cool.
Except for
Nice.
the ground where like the bounciness is not supported, but maybe at some point.
I'm gonna poke you a little bit
Okay.
for that one because that's one that
It's
I
a-
keep
yeah,
asking
I know.
about. Yeah, I know.
I've
It's such a
tried-
nice little.
I've tried to fake it, but it wasn't working. There's other options.
And we're talking about when you're taxiing and you look out the window and you can see the wings bouncing.
Yeah,
Come on, it's easy.
yeah. Just enable ground
Just
flex.
Turn on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Enable ground flex equals
true.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. Roll spoilers equals true. That's what I was talking about before.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move along.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We've talked about some of the features. What else?
We
There's
talk about replay a little bit about
yeah.
With
Oh,
it.
solo mode replay is now live and solo mode replay will work in the exact same way.
yeah.
So you don't have your replay button in solo anymore that immediately jumps you back. Well, how far was it? A couple minutes?
3 minutes, yeah.
3
2
minutes? That's gone. So you fly your flight, you end it, and then you can go into a list of replay. There's a sample on our Instagram, our YouTube account, but it's really quick. We wanted to do a 1 minute Instagram version. But to expand on that a little bit, you will go into your replay list. This logs all of your flights, solo and live, if you have a subscription.
On ATC.
And ATC. But how many of them will it keep?
As long as you have memory
Oh,
on
okay.
your device, yeah.
Storage.
Storage, yeah. As long as you have storage, it keeps it in there.
Yeah. So a running list of, and they're not very big. So Gary sent me one of our IFATC guys who has, I think, usually at the top of the list for ops and hours. He sent me one of his 3-hour ATC sessions, and it was, I want to say 50 megs.
Yeah, it really depends on the number
That's
of aircraft.
3 hours of data, and we're not saving video, right?
Yeah, no, it's saving the actual data to replay it. So yeah, it's not video.
So it's whatever's being streamed on the network to make it happen is saved in the file, and it can stream it again
Right.
anytime you want.
Yeah.
There
Pretty
you
much.
go. Cool.
And that's been pretty exciting because it's something that's been missing in a lot of our social media sharing from the community. A lot of the posts were, like, the nice pictures were always in solo mode. So we never really had big gatherings with tons of planes with nice pictures on a setup that's hard to reproduce. For example, I've had lots of situations like this where, you know, you're approaching a runway and there's a line of like 50 planes waiting for takeoff, and you want to take a picture of it when you're on short final, but it's either you take the nice picture and you mess up your landing, or you don't take the picture, you have a perfect landing, but the moment is gone.
Yep.
And it feels like this was a waste, not being able to reproduce that. So now what's good about it, I still have to force myself not to get the outside camera and take a picture, but remind myself that, like, it's fine, it's recorded. Just land, stop the flight, come back to that moment, put the camera where you want it to be, and take the picture.
Sterile cockpit.
Exactly. Sterile cockpit is a good
Focus on the flight.
Exactly. And this is a big change, especially now that I can, you know, we can rewatch that A10 video that I shot in December, where, you know, we split. Like, I can send you that replay, and you can shoot that video better than I did.
Yep.
And you can rewatch what happened, down to like the takeoff for that flight, to the landing, what Misha was doing at that point. It's really fun.
So a couple of things. Our screenshot artists, photographers, whatever you want to call them, our video YouTubers that do infinite flight YouTube videos, you folks will love this. It's going to take everything up several notches for you. We have super high res screenshots, which Philippe worked on. This is something where if you're does it work in live mode, or do you have to be in replay?
You have to replay.
So if you're in replay, you pause it, you adjust your camera while you're paused so you can get that perfect angle. Other aircraft are all in the shot that are supposed to be there. We'll talk about that in a second, because that caused us a little bit of, as part of the grief that you were working on yesterday, right? And then you hit the screenshot button, and what it does is, this is the simplified version. You can expand if you want. It takes sections of the screen, it blows them up and takes them in high res, and then at the end, when the whole screen is shot, it stitches them all together and saves a JPEG of it in HD to your device in a separate infinite flight folder.
Right. It's basically like taking small sections. Like, if you have a camera, you zooming in on a portion and then you move to the next one like this.
Yeah.
And you can see that the process is shown when the picture's taken.
Philippe's in his office right now going,
But it's a great feature, and we've actually, the reason why we developed this initially is because it's a complete tangent, but last year when we had to do the banner for the show, we sent
for the expo.
Yeah, for the expo, we needed a big picture. So Jason asked me the picture, I think
Cameron initially, yeah.
So we needed something that was big. So I tried to get on my machine here the biggest one that I could, but they told us it was not high enough of a resolution. So I talked to Philippe, how can I increase the render target to make sure that we can have something like 15 by 15K or something. And we ran out of memory because the app was in 32 bits on PC. So this triggered Philippe to work on a 64-bit version. We had already that for iOS, but not for Windows. So we worked on a 64-bit version for Windows, which allowed us to have bigger than the targets. But then during this last year and today, when we had to do that again for the next shows, we had other issues because we used more memory, and even that didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So this is when Philippe worked on that super screenshot, and the one that you have in the app today is not the maximum we can do. I think theoretically there's no limit. It depends on the format you're exporting to. I think JPEG is like 32K or 64K by 64.
Yeah, I exported one that was 64, and I have a decent laptop, and I had a very hard time opening it.
Yeah, it can result in files that are like 200 megs, like a JPEG that's 200 megs in size. It's pretty significant.
That's a lot of data.
And that's the compressed JPEG. So when your screen is showing it, it's decompressing it.
Yeah.
So it's basically the image is probably a gig or two.
Photoshop would open it, but I couldn't do anything with it. So it was just it was too big.
Yeah.
Cool. We also have ramp start availability. That means that you'll be able to, if you're parked at a gate, nobody's going to spawn on top of you, or in your spot. How far does that go? Like if you're pushing back, can someone spawn or?
It's based on the wingspan of the plane.
Okay.
So if you collide with another, if anything is within your wingspan, plus minus something,
okay,
it's going to tell you that there's a problem.
So if they're pushed back out of the way, then you should be able to.
Yeah, and there's a caveat to this. There could be still situations where you could still collide, in case you spawn at the exact same time.
Okay.
Because it's based on the reporting system that goes to the server and sends to another database that is cached, and then when we query what we call the quick live status that shows the map in the background, sometimes there could be a delay of a few seconds. So in most cases, you're not going to have those issues. It should solve the majority of those issues. Yeah, but
Great.
It's not flawless.
Exciting. A little change, but super
Yeah,
exciting. This will not prevent. Oh, and we have gate size restrictions coming up, so that's something that you can't park in a small space with your A380. There's a caveat to that too. You can spawn. You can't spawn at that gate with your larger aircraft, but you can park there at the end of your flight. So maybe in the future we update that somehow.
Just to show, we can find. At least now we couldn't do that before because we didn't have the gate size information inside the database. Now we have it, and we've sent the message to all the airport building team to when they were making new airports or reworking them to make sure that they have the proper aircraft size information on the gates.
Cool. I feel like we moved away from replay a little too fast. I want to mention a couple more things. This is, we've also been having not an outcry, but concerns lately about the expert server not being expert enough. So this is something we talk about a lot internally. We're working on a few ideas for tweaks to that. We hear you. Yes, we agree in some cases. What replay will actually help do is hold people a little more accountable. So if someone taxis through somebody, maybe the controller doesn't catch it, or maybe the controller reports you and you say, no way, I didn't do anything, this was for no reason. Our controllers will have a replay file where they can very easily pinpoint that situation. Where there'll be a little line on the timeline that shows where they reported people, so they'll easily be able to scrub to that location, take a screenshot if they didn't have time the first time. I think for playability, this will help us out a little bit.
And there's been some times where, like when I was working on this, there was one point where I think I was taxiing or I was waiting for takeoff, and I went to the bathroom or something, and I came back and two planes were like tangled, and I was trying to figure out who was responsible.
Yep.
And you can't really know because you were not there to look at who pushed and who tried to get in ahead of the other one.
Yeah.
But then I went to the replay afterwards, and I saw that one of the two pilots was clearly responsible. Like the other one was already engaged, and the other one tried to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, there's no way to know because you have to rely on someone's account of what happened, and no one's going to tell the truth.
No, everyone's opinion is going to be different on what actually happened, and in some cases they won't even know truly what happened because they're flying along. They didn't even see it. Right? Yeah, okay. Anything else about replay that we skipped over maybe that you wanted to mention? Sharing is amazing.
Yeah, sharing is pretty cool.
My goodness. You can share in multiple ways. The video we put on YouTube shows that a little bit. But this is, I can go from Infinite Flight, I can share it, I can airdrop it. If you're on a Mac or iOS, you can airdrop it. We use Slack all the time for work. We can Slack messages back and forth. You can use Dropbox, Google Drive. And then if someone sends one to your iOS device, it will open Infinite Flight. It's a copy to Infinite Flight, right? Is the option that it shows up. And then Infinite Flight will tell you your replay has been saved successfully or something like that. Is a little dialogue, and it's done. That's it.
Yeah.
It shows who the flight or the ATC session was in the list. You can add a comment to it to remember, what was so special about this. Why is it in the list? You can make a little comment before you forget. Very, very cool. Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's 19.1. When are we going to share it with everyone?
It's soon.
Hey-o.
I can actually say
I'm glad
soon.
I'm not the one saying that.
No, so we actually pushed it to Apple, and it's kind of goes back to the old why we don't tell release dates. Is we pushed it to Apple on Friday, and it's been approved Friday afternoon. We thought we were going to ship it sometime this week, but then because we usually get it approved ahead of time so that Jason and the social media team and the community managers are all ready with the posts, with all the videos and all the pictures.
I'm not ready with my post. I mean, I need to write it after we're done here.
Right. So that's something that we do now, and on Monday morning, after like a weekend of testing and no one found out any issues, on Monday morning someone came up with an issue.
It was Nate.
Yeah, Nate came up with something with the replay that wasn't working. So I scraped the release, and then we had to fix the bug, pushed another update, and then in the evening, when Jason was here, we were just chatting around, and then Val tried something on Android, and he told me there was a bunch of other issues with the cameras and some crashes, and the screenshot option wasn't working anymore. So we just scraped it again and fixed the bug and had to send it again. So yeah, this is sometimes like now the approval of the updates is faster, but back in the days where it took about 7 days to get approved, it was tough, to scrape a release like this meant that you have to wait another 7 days.
Maybe, right?
Maybe.
Or longer.
Even today, like you never know. Sometimes we've had situations where last year Apple told us like, well, the thing you've been doing for 5 years, we don't like it anymore.
Yep.
Change that. So we had to, and we've kind of shared about this, and it's been difficult because you never really know. They're kind of like a free thinking entity, and sometimes if the person that reviews your app is a different person and has more stricter standards, they may actually tell you that you can't go through. So yeah.
But bugs are squashed.
Yes, bugs are squashed. I mean, there's a few things that are still there, like as always, like we know things that are broken, but sometimes fixing them takes too much time and
Yep.
too many side effects. There's one that we know that we left in there because the side effects of fixing it is actually what caused the issues that we had on Monday. So we just figured like let's leave it as is. We know it exists. It's not that big of a deal.
We can always push a hotfix,
Right.
or it can come out in 19.2.
Yeah. We basically said they're not showstoppers.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. Like the last week, we just asked for testers to find showstoppers, like basically launching the app crash or going to a page crash. This is a showstopper. If it's just, well, if you're in replay and this happens, and replay is a special kind of piece also because it doesn't, if something happens in replay and it crashes, it's fine. Go back, like you can reload the situation. It's not like it takes, it's not like a 12-hour flight.
Yeah.
Right. So you can just go back to that replay location and then take your picture again. So it's not that big of a deal if there's a couple crashes, but it should be pretty stable. Like we've had longer replays, shorter replays, and
I want to just do a little plug right now. Tomorrow we are hanging out with Greg and Callum from an organization called FS Elite. FS Elite's a flight sim news agency. I think they're fselite.net. Maybe Chris Schaefer, Joe Riley, Chris Levitt, Sebastian. I'm not even going to try his last name. Can you say it? Huilberg?
Huilberg.
Something like that. These guys are helping moderate. Maybe if one of you guys can throw a FS Elite link into the comments, that would be great. We're hanging out with these guys tomorrow, and Callum has come from the UK, Greg has come from out west, I think he's in Denver. We're going to hang out and do an interview with them. I don't know when it's going to be airing, but we'll keep you posted. They offered to do a on-camera interview, and so that's happening. Give those guys a follow. They're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube for sure. If you're interested in what's happening in the broader flight sim community, they are great, nice guys to work with, and we're very much looking forward to doing that. So that's tomorrow. What else? Let's say thank you to our IFATC team. We would not have ATC in Infinite Flight Pro without you. We are grateful for you. Thank you for all the hard work you put in. For everyone else who has maybe been reported or is frustrated, this team is volunteer. All of them are volunteers. They're subscribers. They're paying customers just like you. So if you have an issue with a report or you've been ghosted or anything like that, you have a beef, post I understand how annoying or aggravating it can be to be reported and you don't think you did anything wrong. Post a kind comment on the support category in a forum, community.infiniteflight.com. Someone will, if you have a screenshot to share, take a screenshot when it happens. They will help you, point you in the direction of the controller, and you guys can have a nice chat about it and figure it out.
And replay will help with that.
Replay will help. Check your replay before you complain.
And then you can also, in the replay, you can also isolate your own communications. So in case there was a lot of traffic, you just want to see what happened to a particular plane, you can just click on it and filter, and it's going to show you just that plane in the list. So if you want just to know what happened to you, you can just click on yourself and filter by yourself, and you'll see the exact track that you took, including all the messages and potential ghosting and violations that happened to you in the list. So it should help in those situations, I think.
Agreed. Well, we've talked about all of that.
Other questions? Did you have a few questions? Or
No. Do you have any for me?
maybe.
We can actually look at our live stream and maybe take a few questions from there.
That was a different thing?
Oh, do you want to talk about clouds and buildings?
I don't know.
Yeah, let's.
Sure.
So I'm going to be posting a blog post at some point in the hopefully not too far off future about clouds and buildings. This is, I mean, as we scroll through here, we're looking at A350 requests. Yes, we realize that's an airliner everybody wants. I see HD scenery in South America still, livery requests. Another one is clouds and 3D buildings. So I'm going to give you my non-developer version of why we don't have those yet. So everything that happens in Infinite Flight takes device resources, and since we're on mobile, since I can use my iPhone 8, Laura can grab her her iPhone or a tablet or whatever and use Infinite Flight. We also have users that are using older devices, and we sort of have a bare minimum that we have to support. So something like multiplayer takes device resources because we're loading more information and we're loading more onto the screen. So we use things like level of detail, we call them LODs, so that when the airplane is farther away, we don't see things like pitot tubes and maybe windshield wipers even if it's far enough away. And we load those details as the airplane gets closer to your view. So that's one thing. My understanding of something like clouds. So yes, other mobile sims have clouds, but they also don't have these other things that we've talked about, like other aircraft to load and ATC to worry about. So when we have to load something like clouds, we're dealing with multiple levels of transparency, right? So when you think about a cloud, the sun or light has to shine through the cloud. It reacts to light particles in the cloud. We want the clouds to look realistic, so we don't want to put clouds in that look pixelated or
Right.
or cause lots of lag, right? So adding lots of transparencies puts a lot of burden on the device, and it's very expensive. Is a word that Philippe uses all the time. So that's like very resource intensive. So using things like memory and processing. So when we add multiple layers of transparency, we have to worry about the effect that the light has on it, and then the effect that light is now going to have through the cloud on the surface that it's hitting. So if it's hitting a windshield or a fuselage or a rock or grass or whatever, all those things act differently when clouds are involved. Then if you add lots of clouds, it compounds the issue.
Right.
Buildings, similar, right? We've got one more thing to draw, and then one more thing, and then one more thing, and it's resource intensive. So what I see Infinite Flight having done over the years is putting the focus on real aviation experiences, like having other airplanes present and having air traffic controllers you can actually talk to that aren't AI, and being able to fly all over the world. So that's my take on it. What would you add to that?
So there's this. I think the thing that people need to understand is that, again, we're avid players, and people see me online when I play Infinite Flight with you guys. Anything that you think is missing, I think it's missing too. I would love to have clouds as much as everyone, every single user in the sim. I'd love to have buildings. The only difference between the users and us is that in some cases, I am responsible for making it work.
Mm-hmm.
So I only have myself to blame and not someone else. And in the team, there's also complications of adding a new thing sometimes has, unintended side effects that we talked about before. And just adding buildings, we need to find the right sources of information, and we need to have number of textures that look nice, and we need to have the artists come in and do all the PBR textures for the buildings. So that takes some time. And then the data itself, we have to find the data, process it, clean it, and then upload it to our servers and serve it in ways that it's efficient, that is working at a big scale. Because we don't have small regions, we have the entire world. And we try to do things like fully baked, so
Yep.
it's not like, just partly done. But it's there's things that we've been working on for the past year and a half that go towards making this a reality
Mm-hmm.
faster than not.
Yeah.
Right. So, and for the clouds, and there's a bunch of other visual effects that we've never been able to do before, because there's a big issue we have with by being on mobile,
Mm-hmm.
and one that comes from the fact that we have an extremely long field of view. So in other simulators, you often don't have the view distances that we have. So you can have your cockpit right in front of you, like 10 centimeters, 30 centimeters in front of you, but you can see 500 kilometers away from you.
Yeah.
And that's a big challenge for game rendering, because it comes with a lot of technical issues, and one of them is having the depth. So there's like a special buffer that we use to know the depth of each pixel. So if it's far away, it has a certain value, and if it's close, it has a certain value. And there's precision issues with that. And up until, we still have this issue today. We don't have a unified depth model for the entire scenery. Like the entire scene that we render, we have different types of depth based on what we render.
Right.
And that prevents us from having things like clouds or smoke, because it would go through some objects. And believe us, the guys who are working on this have been pulling their hair for a year and a half, 2 years, trying to figure out how to make this work without impacting performance too much. Because sometimes we find something that works, but then it's fine on iPads, and then we go on Android, and then we find out on certain Galaxy S something, it doesn't work.
Yep.
And we can't ship something that doesn't work on this large amount of a device. So we have to scrape that plan
Mm-hmm.
So even though sometimes we're really close to having a resolution to that issue, we can't go forward and we can't communicate on it, because if we had communicated, people would be like, why is it not working?
Yeah.
And we'd be like, well, it's because the Galaxy S8 on certain market has drivers that are broken and we can't just not support it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So the other option is to have a different code path for older devices, or devices that don't support it. But then it's a lot more time for our graphics engineers to make that work, and for something that may actually be scraped in a year.
Yep.
So it's a difficult balance to make things work well with all these parameters. But there's progress that's been made. There's nothing we can really share now, but once we'll have the clouds, I think it's going to look pretty awesome.
Did you guys hear that? Once we have the clouds, it's going to look awesome, and progress has been made. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a boost.
I can say our eyes have seen things.
Our eyes have seen things, yes. Some of our team right now is going, oh no.
No. I carry my shit.
So there's a comment here that I want to read, because it's a good one. It's aggressive, but live cockpits, for crying out loud. You've done it with the A10. So yes, we did that with the A10. I say we. They did it with the A10. And we're not releasing an airplane this update, but we have airplanes coming. So if
Hopefully,
you put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah. But there's two types of live cockpits, right? So there's the cockpit type, like the A10, which was, and the reason why we did it in the A10 is because there's pretty much no glass in this cockpit. It was just needles. And animating objects, we could already do it. It was easy for us because we know how to animate the throttle.
Yep.
We know how to animate the gear and all that. And having a needle that we move, it's just a matter of figuring out how far in the animation it should be based on the current values of what it's supposed to be representing. So that was not too hard. It's just there was a lot of optimizations and trying to make things work right. Like, for example, I spent a lot of time on the attitude indicator for the A10.
Yep.
Because it was not just like, it was a ball that actually moved in a specific way, and it took a lot of hacking to make that one work and not have it too specific to the rendering of that thing. And there was a lot of things, like you can assume that gauges sometimes have a linear progression, but in the A10 the airspeed is not linear, so you can't just use just like a linear progression to make, like, if it's 0 it's this much, if it's 400 it's, I don't know, like 270 degrees or something. It doesn't work like that. It was more complicated, so there was a bunch of things that had to be done. Now for glass cockpits it's a little more difficult, because we can't animate things to render a screen. It would be technically doable, but it would be super hard to do, and it's not an efficient way of animating. Like, we can't animate pixels. It's just, yeah. So the solution for this is to render to a texture and have the texture mapped onto like a G1000 screen or something.
Yep.
And this is something we'd like to work on at some point. But yeah, it's a different type of challenge than the A10.
I'm looking at my phone because I'm waiting for Philippe to answer me, but he's not. Maybe he'll hear his name. Okay, that covers clouds significantly, I think. I think that's probably more than we've ever said about clouds and buildings. These are, like Laura said, these are things that we want. We want these things. We want tire smoke. We want clouds. We want bouncing wings as you taxi, but we want it done properly. We want glass cockpits. So we're getting close to being an hour here, so we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm good.
Has the wind died down? Will we go flying today, you think?
Tempting.
Maybe tomorrow. Well, yeah, let's answer some more questions.
Someone asked, when are you going to send it to Apple again? It's been sent to Apple already. We sent it again.
Yeah. So that means it's probably ready to go.
Yeah. So talk about taxi lights.
Oh yeah.
So there's been, so it's not really clear when people say, when people ask about taxi light. I think it's because you want the light to cast onto the ground. And there's different techniques to have a lot of lights on a scene. Um, and depending on the technique you use, if it's the default one that's just like the simple that you have sources of light, and you try to figure out based on the pixel the proximity to the light and what the color of the light is, that you cannot have an infinite amount of lights because it requires the shader that would be produced out of it would be too big, and it would not be fast enough. There's different techniques to have as many lights as you want, but it comes with other downsides. So this is why we don't have the lighting on the ground. We could have fake things, but we'd rather have a proper thing instead of having just a hack again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Folks, we're not going to talk about future airplanes because we have things in the works and in the pipe, but we really have to be careful with how we communicate those because of reasons already mentioned, like sometimes things get shelved. Sometimes we have unintended consequences, and it needs to take literally another year before we can add something. So I feel like we are able to give lots of info on this update, but we won't talk airplanes yet about what's coming. I know you want to know so badly, but this update should give you lots to enjoy. Let's see, anything else before we go?
Someone's asking about a particular airport, when it's going to be updated. So if you want an update to a particular airport, there's two options. Either you can make it, you can go to the section on the forum that's about airport editing, so you can request it there, or you can do it yourself. But there's ways to explain, like there's a tutorial on how to make your own edits to the airport database. So if you do that, then you can have your name in the change list.
I think you can go to Infinite Flight Airports dot something. I don't remember what it is. If one of the mods can throw that URL in the chat, in the live chat, maybe go ahead and do that. There's a website specifically for editing airports and becoming an airport editor. If you are frustrated with the airports we have, please go help, because they're all volunteers and they spend a ton of time doing that.
How do I become a beta tester?
How to become a beta tester? Our beta testers are, for the most part, all community members that have really contributed in a positive and helpful way. So we will often say, hey, you know what? So-and-so has been really, really helpful and resourceful on the forum, helping our community, not being argumentative. We think that they could really be a benefit to our beta testing team. I think that's the best advice that I can give, because that's usually how it happens. Because we do trust our beta testers with quite a lot of sensitive stuff that we don't want to share, and they keep a lid on it. So demonstrate that you're a helpful, trustworthy person for a long period of time, and that's the best way to do it. Yeah, we officially almost are. We haven't officially registered, but Chris Wing is asking if we are heading to Cosford again for Flight Sim Show 2019. We have given them a green light in terms of our interest, so yes, the plan is to go, but we have not officially registered because they haven't gone out to to companies yet to officially pay their registration. So the plan is to do that, yes.
Infinite Flight for Nintendo DS. There's questions about porting the simulator to other platforms like the Nintendo DS, and no, we don't have any plans for that at the moment. It's probably never going to happen. No, I mean, unless something changes and it becomes worth supporting another platform, then we're going to stick with iOS and Android for now.
S10 support? Do we have it?
I think it's working. Like a beta tester already had a device the other day, and they said it was working just fine.
Is that the folding one?
Oh, no, it's just a regular S10.
I don't know. I don't know anything about
the folding one.
things.
I'm not sure. I don't even know if they. It's 15.
When's that coming?
It's like $2,000, $15,000, $1,500.
15,000.
1,500,
Terrain
yeah.
map. When's that coming back for radar controllers, or
so-
for our pilots, for that matter.
So this was something that Tyler brought to my attention again for that update.
Yeah, let's give some context.
And I thought that I could make it work. And I actually tried to revive some of that code to make it work just at least for FATC, because these guys need it for approaches into Aspen and places that are kind of mountainous.
Yep.
And I run into issues because the way that we accessed data before doesn't work anymore now. And I've tried to use the system that we're using, but the way it's done is that the elevation that we get today, that we can get, is only for what's visible. So I'm basically querying a code that Philippe does, like Philippe has made, and I can't request a random point and get its altitude. It doesn't work like that. Something different needs to happen. So if it's not something that's been rendered, the data is not valid.
Gotcha.
So it needs some changes before it can happen. However, you know, we're like, I think we've mentioned it, but like there's the maps control that we have now is going to be reworked at some point. There's been work that's been done on that. So hopefully these kinds of little things will make map like detecting the terrain and all that will make it better.
Okay.
So there's not much we can share on that. It's just like right now it's really like bare bones, and but the map should have a significant revamp at some point. Not sure
Awesome.
exactly when the timeline's going to be, because there's lots of unknown. Like theoretically, the concept works, but there's always like little quirks that we have to solve before something can ship.
Cool. I want to mention a couple of events
Sure.
before I forget. We're going to be at Flight Sim Expo again. This year it's in Orlando, Florida. So if you were able to come to Orlando, you can go to flightsimexpo.com, I think is the URL, or Google Flight Sim Expo 2019. Evan and Phil are the incredible organizers. Last year I was blown away by how organized and awesome it was. We will be back again this year. A month after that, a little over a month after that, the end of July, that's in June. At the end of July, we will be exhibiting at Oshkosh, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, this is in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It's by far the world's largest aviation event. Over 600,000 people were in attendance last year. Laura and I were hanging out a little bit just to see, is this something that Infinite Flight should be doing? The answer was yes, we would love to try. So we will be exhibiting in the Epic exhibit hangar C. There's A, B, C, and D. So hangar Charlie, and we will be sort of about a row over from where ForeFlight has their giant display. We share the hangar as well with SkyVector and lots of other cool companies, as well as people who make hangar door openers and massage chairs and everything you can jewelry and everything you can think of. But it's an incredible event. We will be there all week.
I'm encouraging everyone to come if you can. If you're not really sure when to come, if you can, like I would say the weekend, if you can only come on the weekend is it's packed usually.
Yeah.
The last few days is very packed.
And you'll see the fireworks. Right?
Fireworks is on, I think maybe this year they'll have 3 of them, but like there's at least for sure on
Usually Wednesday and Saturday. Right?
Saturday night and Wednesday night. They have a night air show, which is worth attending. It's just
bonkers.
It's insane. And then they have this thing called a wall of fire, where they basically just light a bunch of pyrotechnics.
I figured the wall of fire, so they do fireworks along the flight line and very close to where we're hanging out at night. And I figured the wall of fire was the name of the fireworks display because they're shooting fireworks off in a big line. No, the wall of fire is it's like a Nickelback concert. There's just fire that comes up all the way down the flight line, and you can feel it, and it's
it's pretty insane.
It's American.
And it's really nice because like there's such a nice ambience. Like it's just so nice. Everybody's like happy to be there, and you know the kind of the setup for the expo ends at like 5:30, and then people just hang out, and then around like 8 the show starts, and it's pretty insane.
Yep.
It's worth going. So the housing is difficult in Oshkosh. So if you plan on attending, make sure you reserve your housing so you can.
Yeah. Or plan on camping.
Right, camping. They have a lot of camping position. You can also fly there and camp under your wing. And usually, if you're booking last minute, you can drive a little further south or north. So if you go to Appleton or Fond du Lac, they have some hotels. If you book early, it's cheaper, but it's still expensive. So
All the way up to Nina. We stayed in Nina
I was in
last time.
Nina last year. And,
But good times. And then hopefully at the start of October, we'll be at Cosford, UK again for a Flight Sim show. I'm going to mention a couple of things just as we get ready to close. If you want to find another comment. Guys, we just want to, part of the reason that I'm around is to resource you and to provide you with information. So I would like to, one of my goals is to increase transparency. Infinite Flight has crossover into the gaming world, and gamers, gaming customers expect a lot in terms of communication from developers because that's the culture. So I'm trying to bridge the gap between what we have done in the past and what we would like to do in terms of communication. So look for that to just sort of evolve. I have something really big in the works coming in the next couple of months that will take communication around one topic to a new level. So you can look for that. I'm not going to give any other teasers about that right now, but it'll be cool, and I think that you'll really enjoy it. We have our blog. If you go to infiniteflight.com/blog, Cameron set that up for me to be able to share things that our developers might otherwise think could be boring for the average user, and then I take my non-developer hat and try to communicate it in a way that is accessible, but for me, so hopefully accessible for you. So I'm taking that and just like sharing it. It's not a full-on developer blog. It's just sneak peeks, insight into how we do things, why we do things. You can go infiniteflight.com/blog, check that out. It's more sort of concise info in one spot, whereas the forum has a lot of info, but it's sort of spread out over hundreds of thousands of, or if not millions of posts by now. So that's one of the reasons that I'm around. In addition to that, one of my goals is to take our overall, and I just, again, in the spirit of transparency, to just say, taking the overall tone of the company and shifting it into something that has a lot of purpose, something that's nice, and communicating things in a way where people feel like they're in the loop, and that they're heard, and that their values as an Infinite Flight user are being taken into account. And while we do have lots of diversity, we have people from all ages, from all over the world. So these things can be very tricky, and so I'm going to do my best to be able to do things like Laura and I are doing right now, and bring more info to you. We won't always be able to answer all your questions, like when is the update, or when is such and such my favorite aircraft coming, but we will certainly do our best to communicate it in a way that makes sense.
Cool.
Anything else?
Just one from Gadget Pilot. Do you think talking live with ATC is manageable to develop? The issue with live talking is that we're worried about people getting into arguments.
Oh yeah.
And it's always difficult when there's live interaction. I think it changes the rating that the app has on the stores, because people are going to interact directly. So that's a little tricky.
Language barriers.
Yeah, language barriers, and it's a little
But
tough.
think about real world. Like, yes, that can be very. It can be realistic, I guess. If you think about VATSIM or something, but think about if you are, if you have your teenager is using this device, and you overhear somebody deciding to cuss him out on ATC. That's not cool. That doesn't help our company. Doesn't help the app. And with such a large user base and a large ATC group, yes, we hold our IFATC on expert server to a high level of accountability, but we can't guarantee, and we also can't guarantee what the users may say.
Right.
And with no, how do you moderate that? I don't think
Yeah,
you do.
I think seems like it's too much of a problem to manage
Yeah.
for us as a company right now.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, everyone. This was I realize this was sort of last minute, and we had been planning it, but we didn't know how our schedule was exactly going to go, and we have other things we need to accomplish. So we were able to carve out some time. So
And a technical aspect to it. It's brand like it's
yeah,
new,
this is the new streaming
new
rig.
setup. Right?
It's we've kind of flew by the seat of our pants a little bit and sweated a little bit.
Went to Best Buy this morning.
Yeah, literally got some gear this morning. So. Thanks for joining us. Make sure that you, if you're not subscribed, you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we can't wait to share this new update with you. It is coming soon. It is pretty much ready to go. And so keep your eyes peeled for that. Make sure you share this interview with your friends and online, and we will see you guys next time. Right on.
Great.
Thanks, Laura.
Well, thanks for coming and organizing all this.
Right on. Let me, we don't have an easy way to kill this right now, so we'll just say goodbye, and that's it.
So see you later.